Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Now, it's been a little bit of time since I've dug into this book that I finished on ancient Rome. There's some passages that I've highlighted throughout the book that I wanted to share with you and also give myself a refresher. Now, this particular section that I highlighted was called Civil Swords, okay? And it has to do with Pompey, Magnus, and Gaius Julius Caesar. And Anthony Everett does a fantastic job in making the history of Rome even more cool. Okay, let's begin. Bismillah. The land problem would not go away, but if civilian reform was blocked by vested interests, the poor found another military solution. Peasant recruits were the backbone of the army. So notice again another trend here is the elite class send you to war, but they rarely actually put their kids on the front line. And so when we see here in ancient Rome, obviously the peasants are fighting more than the wealthy, and they gave unswavering loyalty to generals who promised them small farms when their terms of service were over. So small farms is a really good exchange, in my opinion, to get land. Today, there are people who get money for college. There's a lot of that could be said about what American soldiers get. However, land in this day and age would be quite a great reward, but due to the size of our military, we would probably run out of land really quick. During the 1st century BC, the Roman constitution collapsed under the strain of military crises abroad and quarrels at home. So notice this, the strain of military crises abroad. So when you see a lot of the GOP debates, you hear a lot of warmongering for Ukraine, Iran, and to give more money to Israel. To fight that many proxy wars and to give all that money, to use all the tax money, and how America was in Afghanistan for 20 years and has nothing to show for it, wasted trillions, didn't really build up anything there. That can put a strain, right? And all those wounded coming back home, PTSD, and then the quarrels at home angle. Look how the country is really severely divided. It's very divided. You get the Rainbow Mafia, you have the far-right Groyper, America First, right-winger types not liking, the neoconservative warhawks, the establishment Republicans, deep state, and then you have super far-left anarchists, the Antifa types. You have establishment Democrats who are neoliberals. It's really a lot of different factions, and if you recall in the Federalist Papers, Founding Fathers really warned against, the rising up of factions because it destabilizes. So, quarrels at home happening then and happening now, it's not a good recipe. Unscrupulous army commanders use force to win political power and reward their soldiers with the farms they saw. Senators who had resisted reason in the days of the Gracchus brothers now yielded to threats, but only at the last minute and with bad grace. The most successful of these dynasts was Gaius Julius Caesar. Born in Rome in 100 BC, he had the blue blood money but no money. He had blue blood, but no money. During his youth, he was always heavily in debt. A left-wing politician, he was popular with the people and was good at winning elections. Now, when they say left-wing, I'm not really sure how that was contextualized in the Republic atmosphere, But again, historians can, have their interpretations, obviously. Reactionaries in the Senate hated and feared him, impatient with constitutional rules. He formed an alliance with two other ambitious politicians, Pompey the Great and Marcus Crassus. So here, you're seeing a highlight of when him and Pompey were actually allies. Pompey had been around when Sulla was, and it is said that Sulla tried to kill Caesar, but Pompey wasn't somebody who wanted Caesar to die at that time. And Pompey was, if I recall correctly, beheaded in Alexandria by Cleopatra's brother. And they presented his head to Caesar, if I recall correctly. And Caesar was not pleased with it, because they had killed a Roman politician like a butcher. This was the first triumvirate, or in plain English, the group of three. So Marcus Crassus, Pompey the Great, Gaius Julius Caesar. Sometimes people argue that you can have this type of group of three leadership instead of one dictator. You hear this referenced a lot in pop culture and in politics. As a result, Caesar was easily elected to Rome's top job, the consulship in 59 BC. The combination of concordat and conspiracy proved irresistible. Pompey was enormously popular, Crassus was enormously rich, and Caesar was enormously clever. The new consul enacted all their demands. The Senate was powerless. You notice in Roman history the Senate fighting against other senators. It's a really interesting system of vying for your team to win in a different way than it is today. Because back then, some of those senators, they had military experience and they were more closely able to speak to soldiers. Whereas today, I feel the elite politicians are like leeches in their private jets and planes, and they don't walk the same streets as us in a way, and they avoid us. It's just quite different. They're not walking in the slums of us. They're on their private helicopters and, with their barricades. They don't even walk through the hoods. Whereas in Rome, you kind of had the villas, but you still had to go into the markets and see, the one-armed man begging, and you witnessed more of the suffering. And so Pompey, who had problems with pirates and was a commander, Caesar, who later became a conqueror of Gaul, in his right-hand man Mark Antony, who was also a warrior, you just see the different mindsets. And so the peasant recruits having this unwavering loyalty makes sense in a way, because they have a more direct access, seeing them on horseback, they're in the camp, right? It's not like how Joe Biden and even Trump, they just go eat Thanksgiving meals with them and, okay, go die. Nikki Haley, who's a female war hawk, she, wants to send troops to so many places. And is she gonna go put on the combat boots? No. And man, just really makes you think about who you should give your loyalty to. The strain of military crises, quarrels at home, having a group of three, the slowness of constitutional rules, being a tool of the Senate, but when you get some groupings of people who can form an alliance, they can actually render the Senate to have less power, to be more stagnant. I like this section. I hope you did too. He has these kind of blocks of different things you can think about. So hope you like that one. Let me know. And what do you think about him calling Caesar blue blood and left wing in that term, right? Because if you recall, they called Caesar a tyrant. And today, a left-winger would call everyone a fascist. Usually, it's the right-wingers in today's standards who are seen as dictatorial tyrants. But Anthony Everett contends that in a Roman context, the dictator is more left-wing. Maybe that's because the land, the way they disperse of the land, or dispose, resource acclamation, divvying it up, instead of funneling it to the top, dispersing it, socializing it in a way. Much could be said. A lot of scholars of ancient Rome have talked about this. Okay, take care, and we'll see you next time.